Peace and blessings, everyone. I'm Aziza, and welcome to another episode of Truth Be Bold. So, before we get into tonight's topic, it may seem trivial to some of you to even uh, go down this path, but I think it's important because Hollywood has played an integral role with the social engineering for many years. And I have someone, a previous guest, to discuss this with us, William Ramsey. Mr. Ramsey?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you for having me back. Great to be
Thank
with you.
you. Welcome. It's great to have you. It's been a while. How you been doing?
Okay, considering all the circumstances, COVID, etc.
Right.
How
Are
about
you
you?
I'm good. I'm, kind of on the outside looking in, in a foreign country. Um, are you still off of Facebook?
I'm permanently off of Facebook and Twitter. I will never go back. And I'm
Good
a
for
much
you.
happier person for not being there.
Yeah, I recently got rid of my Facebook and it's been nice. to say the
Yeah,
least.
I don't feel like I'm getting conditioned or programmed or corralled intellectually or mentally. I kind of enjoy the environment of me parsing through the information highway instead of somebody doing it for me.
Right. And not being censored.
Right. I was getting censored. It was bad. Terrible. I don't know why. I honestly, yeah, Facebook is really bad news. And so is Mark Zuckerberg. So people who are on there, yeah, it's not good.
Yeah. So let's get into it. Could you talk a little bit about your research and how you even started with this topic and just why do you think it's a piece
Well,
of the puzzle, this
yes, it's
manipulation?
definitely a piece of the puzzle, definitely a piece of the global pyramid of control, no question. And I think that they've been conditioning people. You mentioned social engineering, probably from the very beginning, in some ways not as overt maybe as recently. Made my first documentary. It wasn't of any good quality, not that my documentaries really are, but I made my first documentary called Occult Hollywood back in 2010, and really was just showing that they are putting numerology and ideas and occultism and definitely putting it in films that isn't really overt. So you could call it an Easter egg or something like that. And then I think in the larger issue, it's just about conditioning people to, I think, really kind of just ingratiate them or initiate them into the kind of new world order system. So I think that certain parts of Hollywood are very dangerous, and sometimes they actually tell you a story. There's a lot of predictive programming in there too. They predict things like 9/11, so those are very curious as well. So I think the insiders definitely put in codes or messages to people in the know, whereas the non-initiated don't know. And I tried to really expose that in at least my first film, and then I put my most recent one, Occult Hollywood 2, is on Vimeo, so people can watch that there, and it kind of goes through the occultism in Hollywood as well.
So what do you say to someone who says, Mr. Ramsey, this is just a coincidence? Lady Gaga has her hand over one eye, and Will Smith is doing the same thing. It's just artistic, and all this numbers and occult symbolism. You can find anything that you're looking for if you're really looking for it. What do you say to that?
Well, I think it's a good code. I think that that's probably the story they tell outsiders. But when it's not just Lady Gaga, but hundreds, if not thousands, of celebrities in Hollywood making the same hand gestures, whether it's the sign of silence or the hand over your mouth or the one eye, you have to kind of see a pattern. And some of those gestures really go back into the occult, into Crowleyism, into the OTO, even preceding that. So they're definitely coding things, and it's across the board. Jay-Z, I mean, it's all musicians too. So you definitely can see that they're, ashlars are bricks in this great pyramid of control. And so I think that they're lying about a lot of it. So they probably, the outsiders, they kind of are trying to keep blind from the kind of inside occult agenda.
So can you kind of go into the history of Hollywood a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, it goes all the way back, right? So Hollywood really started in Los Angeles. People were trying to get away from paying Edison money to use his cameras. So it kind of was actually a I mean, it was kind of like a criminal enterprise from the very beginning. They were trying to avoid paying taxes, and the sun was always shining in LA. And Hollywood allegedly references this holly leaf that the Druids used to use. And so, even its core apparently has like some occult, druidic, magical meaning. And in a lot of ways, you can say that this flashing pictures really do mesmerize people, although people allow themselves to passive environment to let the information. So, and in some regard, it is entertainment, but in some of these films, they're definitely not entertainment. So I think that would be the earliest history of Hollywood to the present, but it was always kind of like, talking about certain things had an occult kind of meaning. So the stars themselves, even referencing these stars are things in the galaxy, but
Right.
Crowley's, for example, reference every man and woman as a star. So you can kind of see the subtext of that agenda within Hollywood. And then you can go through some of the early films, and even, they get more and more, whether it's Metropolis, which has all these occult themes in it.
Yeah.
And, some of these documentaries like Triumph of the Will, which was a Riefenstahl movie, which was shown in Nazi Germany, which heavily occult Hitler stuff. This is just one example of some of the early black and white ones. But even going up into today, I think that there were religious films too in the 50s that were instructive, whether it was the Ten Commandments or The Greatest Story Ever Told. But then you can kind of see this growth of much darker themes in kind of cinema, whether it's kind of blood and gore cinema that started maybe in the 60s, but also, darker elements, even 2001 with occult stuff from Kubrick. And, it just keeps getting worse and worse all the way up into the present.
Oh yeah. One that comes to mind is Rosemary's Baby.
Yeah.
That's a really good
Absolutely.
example. And then you have all the other stuff going on behind the scenes with that movie.
Tons. The stuff behind the scene is almost more important than the things on the screen. So that was made after the whole Sharon Tate murder and the Manson family. And, it was very dark. And, it's about bringing into the Antichrist. Supposedly Anton LaVey was involved in that. It's pictured in it. And Polanski really kept on with the occult themes in his films. So all of his films have a lot of occultism themes, whether it's The Ninth Gate or some of his other more recent films. But The Ninth Gate in 1999 was really incredibly occult film. So, but also like some of the people around, I mean, occultism kind of goes in and out of fashion, but at that time in the late 60s, I would say that was an apex moment of occult interests in Hollywood. And a lot of people around those deaths were involved in the cult. Jay Sebring was supposedly a member of an occult group. And there were supposedly films being made, and Polanski's friends with a lot of sketchy people. So, and actually, believe it or not, Sharon Tate was kind of in an occult film too, called The Eye of the Beholder, where she talks about magic. So, and she actually, and she was actually there were two kind of main strains of witchcraft, Gardnerian and Alexandrian, and one was Alexander's, and she knew Alexander's. There's pictures of her with Alexander's, one of the kind of big two of the, post-Crowley Wiccan Druidic witch movement. So she was definitely people always say dabbling, but you don't really know how deep it gets, but it got very deep because Manson himself clearly knew occult themes. He was practicing Scientologist. He clearly said he knew about the Process Church.
Yeah.
He once said that me and De Grimston, his name was I can't remember his first name, but one of the founders of the Process Church, Manson said, me and De Grimston are one. So it's kind of like a play on a biblical theme, but so there's so much more occultism, and a lot of it's kind of glossed over. But they carved, when they killed LaBianca, one of those murders that happens after the Sharon Tate murder, they carved the war into one of their bodies in a very occult, as above, so below manner. And that's often overlooked in the Manson environment. And you can see pictures. You want to talk about hand gestures where they're making the sign of silence. there's pictures of women from the Manson family in court buildings walking around making the sign of silence. And I think it was Squeaky Fromm who went on and tried to kill President Ford. Actually, there was a bullet that grazed his head. If she would have killed him, I think it was Nelson Rockefeller would have become president. But that bullet
That's
didn't hit his
interesting.
heart. Yeah, no, that's a story that isn't told very often too. I think it was in the late 70s. So there's all kinds of crazy stuff that really surrounded the Manson family, no doubt.
Yeah, and Charles Manson really became this pop culture icon, which is very disturbing.
Yeah, he still is. I actually just published a book called Global Death Cult, where he's a kind of like a poster child for some of these guys in the occult movement. They were Nazis who really admired his outlook, which is like air, water, or something. So he's kind of like a naturalist in his sensibilities. But a lot of these guys in Atomwaffen who were in the news recently traveled to the supposed cave to the underworld that Manson used to take his followers in the desert. So he's still his ideologies and outlook still are influential. Yeah, you're right.
How do you, from your research, how do you think it goes with these celebrities? Are there levels to their knowledge? Because I'm thinking of someone like Beyonce, for example. Obviously, she's been put in that position and she's, she's the one. And then I look at others and I'm wondering, are they just dupes?
I don't know. I think that there is an initiatory thing. I do believe there's pretty dark actors at the very top, Weinstein types, who really do control who gets in films and stuff. You could see Weinstein pulling, or was pulling strings on people, elevating people, and also bringing people down. So I think now he was a very dark actor. He's very strange friends. There's pictures of him at Prince Andrew's birthday party with both Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. Epstein was probably murdered. Ghislaine Maxwell was still in jail. And they were also engaged in all kinds of dark stuff. There was occultism involved in them. That has nothing to do with Hollywood. But Epstein traveled in very dark circles, and in my opinion, and I do think so. I think that if you extrapolate that, there's a lot of casting couch things that happen, but also initiating. You hear stories about Drake, you hear about a bunch of homosexual activity, rumors, and Jay-Z himself. I mean, he talked about Rain Man. So there's, I mean, he, my opinion, knows a lot more of this kind of dark element, and I think that influences who goes up and who doesn't make it. Really, I think that there's like you talk about maybe a glass ceiling, but I would say there might be. I think that it's provable that you would say that there's like an initiation ceiling, where those who are initiated have it much easier than those who aren't in Hollywood.
So people who are willing to sell out the most.
Right, or sell themselves, or do whatever they're told, be handled. They always talk about these people being handled by people behind the scenes, and I do think that does happen. I think that if you even look at Sharon Tate, for example, or maybe some of these other celebrities, somebody's clearly putting them in certain places to do certain roles, and
absolutely.
I think the women who are much more amenable to selling themselves out for whatever reason do find worldly success.
Even their relationships seem contrived.
Yeah.
They don't seem organic.
I think that's true. I think a lot of it's that some of the relationships are done for publicity and are staged. Some aren't, but I mean, if you look at like Johnny Depp, for example, who he seems to really have ingratiated himself to Hollywood, I think that led to his success, or whatever, his worldly success. And you can just follow his career. I think as an exemplar. Yeah, following Ninth Gate and all these other films that he's been, even in
Fear and Loathing.
Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. Who's Hunter S. Thompson's a very dark figure. And he was really friends with Hunter S. Thompson, actually. Yeah. And just like he was a real promoter of Damien Eccles, if you remember the West Memphis 3 story, who now is writing occult books. And he was in Ninth Gate. But you can really trace Johnny Depp's career And almost like I've heard that his character in Pirates of the Caribbean is almost like an occult trickster. Like he's almost kind of like an occultist who does things, and he's made that sign of silence
Yes.
gesture in his films. So you can see these guys, and some people. There's a lot of deaths and strange deaths that happen in Hollywood too, and that's another symbol. Is like who makes it and who dies of a drug overdose or supposedly kills himself. And there's a lot of fake suicides there, a lot of really dark things. I mean, Hollywood's super dark. So you got to really watch out. Hanging out with some of those power brokers they operate just like a mob, just like the Italian mob or something like that. Like you don't cross them, you do what you told, or bad things can happen to you.
On the lines of these deaths, do you think that all of them die, or what do you think from your research? What have you found?
Well, I think that there's definitely some of the young child stars are abused and then they die either of drug overdoses. Very convenient for the people who abuse them, drive drug overdoses or misery, or will they want to die. So I can't remember some of the figures, but clearly there's like a pedophile, like Corey Haim, for example. This guy, he was supposedly raped very frequently as a child and died of a drug overdose. He just was an abuser of pills. He probably was very disturbed, in my opinion, or just didn't kind of get past all the suffering that he went through. So and there's a lot of stories like that. Actually, there's a lot of women and boys and stuff like that who didn't make it. So I think and then some. I do believe. Can't remember the guy's name. I think it was Saling. Like I think some of these guys get suicided before they tell the story or expose powerful people. So I do think that happens. And Epstein actually was very influential in Hollywood. A lot of people don't know that. That was
I
one
didn't
of
know
his
that.
stories that was very covered up. But a lot of people were on his flights from Hollywood. I don't feel like naming their names, but he actually in Virginia Giuffre, who just sued Prince Andrew, sorry. She mentions in her autobiography traveling to Hollywood with Jeffrey Epstein. And actually I think it was at the Golden Globes, it was the host there who was in, oh gosh, what was the name? I know his face, but anyway, he was telling them like, he's your friend, right? And he was telling them the
Oh, yeah,
truth.
the British guy.
Yeah, the British guy.
Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, he's your friend. Yeah, he's telling the truth. He actually was very honest in a very uncomfortable way for a lot of those people. So Epstein definitely ingratiated himself through the Hollywood. I mean, even Maxwell, for example. I don't want. I mean, they both were. So my point is that there is kind of a very dark element. I think Epstein was very dark. What was going on at that island? And Virginia Giuffre talks about Maxwell having black cloaks and statuaries and things like that in secret rooms in his mansion in Manhattan, and just kind of weird things that were happening around that. So I think it's just part of that milieu of occultism and things like that. But I do think that certain careers there's certainly promises to make your career if you kind of adapt this kind of new, Babylonian kind of occult culture that definitely existed in Hollywood. I'm not sure as much now. I don't know if that machine is as powerful as it used to be.
Do you think some deaths are faked?
I can't I mean, there supposedly are fake deaths, but I've never found one that actually turned out to be fake. Do you know of any fake deaths?
No, there's always the rumors,
Right.
but there's never anything concrete.
Well, I think I've read a lot of Crazy Days and Nights, which they put a lot of information, a lot of rumors, and a lot of really true stuff. Actually, they knew a lot about Weinstein even before he was arrested, but they talk about all kinds of fake real suicide, people who were suicided, people who were told to shut up, payoffs, cleaners, all kinds of things that happen under the surface, and a lot of blackmail too. So I mean, I think, like, for example, Marilyn Monroe, I believe she was killed. So I don't believe that she overdosed on drugs. I think that's a fake story. And she's like one of the most, this is kind of kind of occult movie type stuff. I think it was 62 under the John F. Kennedy administration. So I think she knew too much about Kennedy and Robert, actually. And she was going to talk about it. And they went in and got cleaned up in Brentwood. So that's just one example in a long line of people, I believe, who were murdered.
Have you heard about Louise Huebner?
No, well, who's that?
She was the first publicly acknowledged witch in Los Angeles.
No, it sounds familiar. My understanding is that the number one religion among young girls in Los Angeles is witchcraft. So
that doesn't surprise me.
no, I don't know who Huber is. What about her?
No, she blessed Calabasas, and we know about all the different things that have, happened there.
Right. Up in the valley.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, like, what, isn't that where the Kardashians live?
Yeah, that's where Kobe Bryant's plane went down.
Right.
And
well,
she
have you ever seen
Watts before the riots were there?
Yeah, not surprised. I mean, look at. Have you seen the picture of the Kardashians with Bruce, whatever, Jenner? They're making the sign of silence. That same gesture.
You mean their Christmas card or whatever that was?
Yeah. So they're in on that. They're on the inside.
Well, Bruce, he grew up in Newtown, Connecticut.
Really? Wow.
What are the odds of that?
Very small. That's remarkable. I'm not surprised. That here's the other thing is that these guys, they call themselves trans. Yeah. It gets really strange. They think they're women, but they don't actually ever have an operation. So he's running around saying he's a woman, but he still has the parts that he was born with, if you know what I mean. Which is very strange.
Yeah, it's that's the
hermaphroditic, whatever Hollywood thing.
Yeah, that's the pinnacle, the androgyny, right? So
right, yeah.
What about, have you looked into Britney Spears? What do you think about that?
I mean, I haven't researched her enough. Yeah, but I think that she's a perfect example of somebody who is just controlled, right? Like somebody's always handling her. She's kind of like broken. Like she literally went cracked, right? So she went insane or whatever. And I don't even know if my understanding of the rumor about her is she's still kind of in a childlike state. Have you heard that?
Yeah, those videos that she or whoever is controlling her posts on Instagram, it seems like that. And you hear that a lot if you listen to these celebrities, some of these female sex kitten type celebrities, they have that childlike tone. So it might have something to do with
it's like
programming.
A certain kind of beta programming. Yeah. So, somebody may be screwing with them. And that symbolism is all throughout those music videos, the clothing they wear. There was one guy who supposedly committed suicide. He was a famous fashion designer. His whole style and everything was all kind of beta kitten programming and all that stuff, all this, so-called MK Ultra offshoots. And I can't remember his name, but he supposedly committed suicide at a very early age. He was from Britain. I forgot his name.
And did you hear about the one that recently died strangely? He did some comedic skit where he was applying for the Illuminati. Did you see that?
No. Do you remember what his name was?
I don't. He was in The Whitest Guys, or something like that. I don't know his name.
That doesn't ring a bell.
But it was recent, and he did the skit, and shortly after the skit, he died.
The one I'm thinking of is Alexander McQueen, died at 40, supposedly asphyxia.
Is that the one? Was it recent?
That was back in 2010. I think he killed himself, but he still
no, this one was like
stuff on
a couple weeks ago.
No, I don't know that one. McQueen dressed Rihanna, Sandra Bullock, Sarah Jessica Parker, Nicole Kidman.
And I'll have
Lady
to look it up.
Gaga, all those things. Yeah, the Queen. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know the new one, but it's hard. It's hard to keep track, to be honest with you. There's so many strange things that happen out there.
It really
And
is.
my understanding in Hollywood is that
Trevor Moore.
I don't know that. My understanding is the police are owned, so they get paid off by the big companies, so they never really do real investigations, which is why so many of those people have never been arrested from Nickelodeon, from allegedly abusing kids at Nickelodeon or some of these other, because the police are all part of the cartel, and then they have their own PIs and their own cleaners, so they're really just shielded from any legal recourse.
What's funny, they allude to this in movies and people just
Yeah.
they
Was it
don't
LA
connect the dots.
Confidential or something like that? I think. Yeah.
I haven't seen that, but I know in Breaking Bad you see that as well.
It's the cops are paid off.
And you see it in John Wick with the cleaners. There's a lot of truth drops in John Wick. But,
Right, and if you see, I think it's Pulp Fiction too had a cleaner. If you remember, he called a cleaner they accidentally shot a guy in the back of the car, and they had to call a cleaner. So that was Hollywood. So there's definitely cleaners out there, and some, yeah, fixers and cleaners, they exist. If you remember, here's a perfect example: is Jeff Bezos was sending pictures of his manhood to his girlfriend, and
I remember that.
Do you remember how fast that disappeared off of the media? 24 hours, that story was gone. That story was dead. So he called, I don't know, I don't want to mention names, but he called people who definitely have above the table connections, but may have sub rosa or under the table connections. But that was done, so baby. That story. I haven't seen stories like that. Stories die like that that fast. But the people that he called were in Los Angeles, if you remember. I don't want to name their names, but they're LA connected. Yeah.
Well, did you see that Paris Hilton thing that came out? That disappeared quite quickly.
Didn't she come out and say that it was all like the dumb blonde was all an act?
Yeah, she came out with the documentary, and she was talking about her time in this behavioral modification school in Utah and all the abuse that was going on there.
Yeah, I know. I remember.
But it's funny. But it's funny that didn't get the press that the Britney Spears thing did.
Interesting.
This was just like a blurb. And interesting thing is this school, I know someone who went to this school, the same one that Paris did, and says the exact same story. So
which was
the abuse, the different things that were, locking people up, or locking children up in these rooms, and the drugs and the sexual crimes, the whole gambit. So
yeah, I've heard really bad things about those so-called homes, well, not homes, but those reformatories type things. They don't really work, and they're abusive as hell. But her Hilton, have you ever seen the Millennium Hilton that looks like a big monolith that's in or was in Manhattan?
No, I haven't.
Like totally super occultic. Yeah, look up the Millennium Hilton. It was right next to. I mean, we're at the 20th anniversary of 9/11, but all close to it. But yeah, that's connected to the Hilton family, right? The hotel family. If you just Google the Millennium Hilton, it'll remind you of 2001: Space Odyssey.
I'll have to look it up. What do you think the role of paparazzis is? Because I've always assumed that they're kind of around to be a part of the whole handling of celebrities, make sure that they're being watched.
I've heard that some are on the inside, so they're not really independent of the celebrities, that the celebrities tell them they're going to be, and they pay money and to so-called make it look real. So there's definitely some inside stuff on that, whether they're there to bolster people or maintain something. I don't really know.
And what do you make of the role of celebrity that we've seen with the current situation?
In what context? Do you mean like TV or movies or what?
Just how they've been used to push
Right.
a particular agenda. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that definitely there is social engineering going on, pushing agendas, whatever that agenda is. But I mean, there's definitely an intel background in CIA or whatever, some kind of intel in in movies. Like my understanding is that after 9/11, they promoted Pearl Harbor. That was supposedly a giant kind of psychological operation
Mm-hmm.
to associate what happened at 9/11 with Pearl Harbor. And they always use those terms. 9/11 is another Pearl Harbor, right? This is
Right.
another. And so that's just one example. So I do believe some of these people are cutouts. And so I think that the
What do you
agenda
mean by a
is,
cutout? Do you mean like they're
well,
CIA
I
since the
think
very
that,
beginning?
yeah, that they have intel background. I mean, I don't want to name names, but there's some celebrities out there whose intel background precedes their fame, or
Really?
their family precedes their
Interesting.
fame. Yeah, no.
Because I know they're in
One,
the media, but I haven't thought about, celebrity.
right. I mean, I think one would be, what is his name? Let me see if I can remember. It's
You don't have to say any names.
no, it's the, I do know his name. It's he was the director of Fight Club. I know his name.
Oh. Hmm.
I'll get it. Give me a second. But he's done all kinds of strange kind of occult stuff. It's and the occult, that movie actually was predicted kind of 9/11. There were things in there that hinted at 9/11.
It's interesting you bring that up because if you look at like music videos or movies, maybe like 10, 15 years before 9/11, tons of predictive programming.
Right. There's a lot. Yeah. End of Days was one with Schwarzenegger that had predictive programming about that.
And
And
you can
Fight
see it
Club.
now with this situation. If we look at movies from 10 years ago, it's
Right. David
this.
Fincher is his name. David Fincher. Go look through his films. They're remarkable. Yeah, he's direct. Yeah. I mean, it gets pretty dark. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of stuff I don't even feel comfortable mentioning. But yeah, I mean, go look at Fight Club today. It was put out in 1999. You can see the smiley faces. You can see the spherical caryatid, which was right at the base of the Twin Towers. All that stuff is in there. And then it gets really dark.
Yeah, it's
But
like
to
you
go
said.
back to your original question, some of these individuals, like, are they formed? Oh, actually, Fincher is from an intel family. I believe his dad was in military intelligence of some sort.
Wow, you can't
Yeah,
make this stuff up.
you can't make it up. And if you look at like Dave McGowan's book, Weird Scenes, a lot of those musicians, they came from mainline families, old
Jim Morrison,
elite
right?
families, yeah, or intel families.
And I think Janis Joplin, she had some weird stuff going on.
A lot of weird stuff, man. A lot of these guys. Who was
Wow.
it? Frank Zappa's dad was in military intel, if I remember correctly.
Really?
Yeah, no, a lot of these guys had it. So it was really kind of a theme, actually. Some of the guys from what's the name? Crosby, Stills and Nash. Crosby was a Van Cortlandt, which there's like a park in New York City for the Van Cortlandt. So he comes from an old kind of elite family. Yeah, a lot of these guys.
And all in California,
All in California.
all in the same
So
area that we have serial killers and other stuff going on at that time. All coincidence, right?
supposedly. I mean, you're kind of into program to kill territory, which is also Dave McGowan. So yeah,
Excellent
Hollywood is
book.
the nexus of very weird stuff. I mean, you can go back to the Black Dahlia, which involved people
Mm,
who like were associated with John Huston, probably, who was in Polanski. John Huston was associated with people who might have been involved in the Black Dahlia. And there he is in Chinatown, directed by Polanski, about financial shenanigans and secret murders and things like that.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's about secret murder. I mean, really, it's the first reference to a smiley face killing type murder that I ever saw. It was made in 1974. I think the screenplay won the Oscar for best screenplay, and the sidekick or the guy whose name was Mulray. What Jack Nicholson discovers is that Mulray was drowned at the Houston character's mansion, drowned there, and then thrown in salt water. But the coroner finds that he has regular, Mount Spring water in his lungs, so he's clearly moved. Really remarkable. It's just like sends a chill down your spine. So yeah, and you can go back through and Nicholson's connections to Kubrick and all these guys. And I think that some of the kids that Polanski abused were at like Jack Nicholson's house, if I remember correctly. So,
and nothing was ever done about Polanski. They've thrown other people under the bus, but
this is true. Well, he was actually convicted. So he fled between his conviction and sentencing. So he went to France, where I don't believe they have an extradition treaty. And apparently, according to my research and other researchers, he just continued the cycle of abuse. There's apparently some women who claim that he was abused. So it didn't stop. He went to a new jurisdiction, allegedly. That's my understanding.
And he's still praised in Hollywood.
Oh, I think they mentioned something, and all these people at one of the Oscars or Golden Globes, they gave him a big rounding standing ovation, and he's my opinion, he's a monster.
Yeah. And there was someone else that came out. Who was it? It's Kirk Douglas's father, right?
Yeah, I think there was allegations about him.
Yeah. And
him being an abuser.
Yeah, and he was a huge one in Hollywood, but not a word about it. Yeah. Interesting.
I mean, a lot of these guys get away with stuff too, right? They get clean, paid off. I think some of those lawyers' files, I don't want to mention their name, but some of these lawyers' files in Hollywood would probably just jaw-droppingly incredible payoffs, secret agreements, litigation, just all kinds of crazy stuff that never come to the light of day.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, one of these things, if you remember the pedophile scandal, there was a scandal, I can't remember the kid's name, but he claimed some older guys were abusing him and was public. And that all just, it was a lawyer out of Florida. But this is allegedly, in my understanding, in my opinion, what that lawyer was doing was threatening other names that were never publicized, because he had already gone public with this one, right? So the people weren't publicized. It encouraged them to settle out of court suits. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that happens a lot.
Right. So that was kind of his stratagem, his tactic, to encourage some of these people who are very powerful to settle out of court, because he would go public with their names with some kid, who claimed abuse. The stories like that. I mean, it just goes on and on. There's a lot of abuse. It's a very abusive environment in Hollywood. So, when people say I'm going to go to Hollywood and be a star, I'm like, do you know what you're getting into? Like, are you crazy? Like, you're not going to be the same person in 2 or 3 years. I mean, if you look at Weinstein, he was a predator, just a super predator. If you look at all the stories of what happened, I bet there's another, just like Cosby, there's probably a lot of people who never wanted to go public. They got married, they had kids, they had jobs or something, and they just didn't want to, come to the surface. So I think that's a lot of those abusers were very active.
Yeah. So what do you think about as far as the influence of Hollywood now? Because you mentioned before we came on that you think it's waning. And what do you think the reasons are for that? I
think because of the exposure. I think alternative media, podcasts, a lot of these cases that came out, Weinstein, these arrests, really kind of exposed the ugliness of some of the stuff that happened. And also, I think technology has allowed people an alternate means of creativity so that they can film stuff or do videos or things without going through that machine system. The old kind of production system of the past has been atomized. And I think that's a good thing. I don't think that there's really like moguls as there used to be. And I think that that's diminished. It's also expanded the creativity, but it's also diminished the capacity for abuse, is my belief. But I think we're kind of like in a phase that, with the advent of streaming, that there's a really a kind of a new creative renaissance where so many things are being created that people really have more choice in their entertainment choices than have ever been presented in the past. And I think that's in a lot of ways a good thing. So I think that old abuse system where it's all centralized in Los Angeles and all can be self-contained and covered up has dissipated. And I think that people are a little bit more wise to the system. And there's, like I said, there's other opportunities. They don't have to go into some place where they have to be raped or casting couches, which, go back 100 years. They probably go back to the beginning of Hollywood. So it seems like less. And I think that people see that the dark elements of Hollywood are much more open and obvious.
That's interesting, because you've seen even, I remember you used to, buy cassette tapes or CDs. Now, that's irrelevant. And you've seen these artists trying to fight for relevancy. I've noticed that more recently, like the way they just kind of pimp themselves out for things in the past they probably never would have done before. So I can definitely see what you're talking about there.
Yeah, I think that there's not there's much of a machine, like this is the Hollywood machine. You have to be there to go forward. So I think it's not as much of a monolith. People are producing things in different places. And I think that some of the stuff that's being made is some of the streaming stuff is good. You see much more I think actually a lot of international artists are being exposed that never would have crossed some of the national boundaries. So you're seeing I think on Netflix, for example, much more interesting things I saw a show from Israel I thought was really good. I saw a Spanish show, one that was made out of Germany. So in a lot of ways, I think that that's a positive change than, this kind of old Hollywood system. And there's a lot of money out there. Netflix is throwing around huge cash, huge amounts of money, billions of dollars. So I think that that's, the talent will out, and hopefully there won't be as much abuse and a lot of those kids. I mean, mine are like Disney and those Nickelodeon kids. Abuse was horrific. So I think a lot of that was exposed, at least online.
You don't think it'll just change locations?
Hell no, possibly. I mean, you just hope that it gets better. I think exposure helps. People know that it's out there, but it's just like there'll probably be a new generation of naive people and predators. Hopefully, I hope that doesn't happen. But yeah.
So closing thoughts, question unrelated to the topic. Where do you see us going on this current trajectory as far as society is concerned? And I'm being vague for a reason.
Well, no, I mean, I think that this COVID has really kind of been a global nightmare. And I think that you see a cartelization of response to the problem. And I think that you see this kind of medical cartel really kind of controlling things and working in tandem with the media to really propagandize people, because there were other solutions to COVID that were never really addressed. And they're really, you can see them really trying to hammer it with this whole Delta variant. They're just going to try to keep poisoning people with these poisonous vaccines forever. So I think that that's very dark. And I think that a lot of these people there should be some type of like Nuremberg trial for a lot of these people who, the vaccines I think are worse than the COVID itself over time. So I wouldn't even ever take a booster or anything like that. So you still see this real desire among the elites to propagandize people. And I think Hollywood's part of that as well. So I'm not really that optimistic. I think that people have to find their way out of this, the pyramid of control of which Hollywood was part, but also this whole, people just getting hammered with these big corporate media conglomerates really shaping people's opinion. I think so. As long as that happens, the fate of humanity is not positive.
Where do you think it'll go? You said that you don't think the fate of
Well,
humanity is
I
positive.
think you're looking, I think you're looking at the Book of Revelation. I think that you're going to have a one world government. That's what all these guys want. They want to put a one world government with all these nations and hopefully centralized. And it'll be a new world order, which is the old world order, which is a bunch of elites living off of basically a bunch of serfs who are little more than slaves. The average American cannot take a $500 charge. I think 40% of the Americans, if they had $500 needed to pay out, they wouldn't make it. So I think they're really just grinding people into misery and debt. And the response to the COVID problem, which may have been created in a lab, which would pay money for people to answer those questions, is part of that whole trend. So I know, these are all predicted. They always wanted to have a disease where they could aggregate power. The U.S. more money was printed in the last 2 years than have ever been printed in the history of the whole country. So it's a huge wealth transference. And so you just see that elitism, you see the aristocracy or whatever, the oligarchy control. It's both sides, it's left and right. Both people on the top profited. And so as long as people keep getting hammered with propaganda, even from Hollywood, and passively accept this stuff, I'm not optimistic at all.
It's all for your health though, right?
Right. No, you got to take that. You got to take those two values. Here's the thing: this is how you know that it's a bunch of hooey. Is that a lot of people already have natural immunity. So what they should be doing is checking to see if you have the natural immunity, so that you don't even have to take a shot, because natural immunity to any disease is better than a vaccine, right? So why aren't they doing mass drive-throughs to give people a card saying, "Hey, you've already been exposed to this," right? But see, you can't keep selling people vaccines and getting money for the billions of dollars from the government if people are convinced and know that they're already immune. Does that make sense?
It does. You have to keep selling the snake oil. It's a business.
Yeah, you got to keep selling.
Yeah, just good business.
Delta variant. Do you know that they just came out and said that these vaccines have little efficacy after 6 months? Do you know that in Israelis are saying that 85% of the people in their hospitals have taken both shots?
I've seen that, and they're already on their third. They're already telling people in Israel, if you only had two, well, guess what? That's a problem.
Do you know what they should be saying too? Is what they don't say is that there's no asymptomatic transmission. So you shouldn't have to worry if you're not sick, and you shouldn't be worried about other people if they're not coughing on you, right? So somebody has to be symptomatic to transfer it to somebody else. I almost never hear that. And a lot of those guys who are talking on TV are part of the cartel. They work for Pfizer. They may be getting money for Pfizer right now. So they're going to keep up the paranoia, the fear. It's bad. And you got to really be careful about those vaccines. A lot of people aren't taking it. So, there's other solutions. So, that's the whole power of the cartel, is really to, it's almost kind of like sales. They shape somebody into the desired end, right? Mm-hmm. So you're not making billions of dollars. Why would you shape them? The whole point is to transfer that wealth and make that money. So it's all, money is the root of all evil. And that's what they're doing. That's exactly, the billionaires have been made off of this stuff. So, and they want to keep making money. They want to keep that gravy train going from the government. How are you going to do that? Scare the shit out of people constantly. So people are just getting mind raped by these and it's all coming out of the corporate media. The alternate media is very suspect, and that's a whole different story about the alternate media. Is like, what's going on here? Why we can't continue to do this? Why are we locked down? What's the problem? So people are going to get their own solution than these government overlords, and a lot of them are freaking communistic, at least in certain states. So anyway, it's people need to really put on their thinking caps and think their ways through. People tell me that I am creating a fiction, but then when I start asking them questions, why isn't anybody getting antibody tests? Why is natural immunity work? What is the germ, not the viral theory? If you've had something and you beat it, does it last forever or does it go away? Because the human body wants, and then that's the whole idea where you're getting inoculated for measles, mumps, rubella, right? You get exposed to something, you don't have to worry about it the rest of your life. So if you've already been exposed, why aren't we finding out who's been exposed? And everybody has a card saying, I've been exposed to COVID-19. So then when people kind of think about that, well, you don't really have a lot of thinking going on the corporate media. And that should tell you everything. It's just fear, get your third shot, get your fourth shot. I've seen something online, I don't know if it's verified, but they have 10 more shots laid out. So they've got Delta, Epsilon, Gamma, Omega, blah, blah, blah.
Oh, I believe
you want
it.
to live under that. Yeah, and you want to look, clearly a tie between the increase of the shot regimen for children and what's called autism. And, there are certain people who, like the Amish here, who do not take shots, do not have autism. So that should tell you a lot. They don't have these diseases that are more common. And you have to ask yourself, why? Why is this going on? Why is Bill Gates out there? I thought he was a member of a tech company. Why is he out there telling me about inoculations?
And he's conveniently disappeared.
I guess he's gone now. So, and look at his background, look at his daddy's background, look at the Planned Parenthood. I mean, it should scare the living crap out of people. It really should. Anyway, don't get me started.
Well, I already did, and I'm glad I did. I appreciate your time, Mr. Ramsey. This has been very insightful, just like last time.
My pleasure. Anytime. I'm sorry I missed the last one, but I got a scheduling software, so now I know. Now it reminds me. So whenever I'm having a busy day, it still tells me you got to be here at a certain time. So I apologize for that.
No, you're great. It worked out anyway.
Cool. Awesome.
So we'll be in touch. And once again, thank you. Do you have anything you want to plug really quick?
If you want to watch my Occult Hollywood video, it's on Vimeo, Vimeo. You can have 5 documentaries there. The 20th anniversary of 9/11 is coming up. So I did a video just last year, Prophet of Evil, Aleister Crowley, 9/11 and the New World Order, which you might want to see the documentary again on Vimeo. And just put out a book, Global Death Cult, which is about kind of a post-Nazi, post-Crowley group that's, in my opinion, very dangerous and has little membership throughout the world due to the internet. So I think people should check that out. And all my books are on my website, William Ramsey Investigates. And I've been very busy kind of doing interviews on my podcast. So if you go to William Ramsey Investigates on iTunes, you can kind of catch up to all the research I've been doing and kind of just talking about COVID. I had a really good interview with the guy about COVID, so people can kind of analyze his outlook. I think would be very worthwhile. But it's great to be with you again. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ramsey. We'll be in touch and take care.
All right. Okay. You as well. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.